demonstration, we're going to talk about using VastCommerce, the item broker, to look up parts and the link to motor labor. Occasionally, you'll see that if I go into this open work order from Marty Klosterman on this 2005 Chevy Tahoe, I'm going to right-click, go to VastCommerce and the item broker. Just want to show you an example of what some customers call in occasionally with issues where they say that they cannot find labor operations. For this demonstration, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select brakes and wheel bearings, front brakes and rotors, and I'm simply going to go to Advanced and select a set of rotors for this particular vehicle. Now, as you'll see here, it's coming up with the results, and if I wanted to, I could go to part type and narrow it down to just disc brake rotors. Narrows down my search criteria, and I'm going to go with front disc brake rotors. I'll put a check mark on that. Now, when I click on the labor tab at the top of the screen, it remembers the fact that I was looking for disc brake rotors. And you notice where it says selected parts. It is identifying the labor that it wants to look up here based on the parts that I've already chosen. Now, typically, this is a nice and efficient way to go ahead and have it automatically look up labor for that particular part. Now, when I double click on this, you'll notice that it says no data available. Well, it's because the system is thinking that you're trying to do a brake rotor job only, where in this instance, you would need to start off with the labor on the base job, which would mean removing and replacing the pads. You don't replace the rotor without first pulling the pads. So if you ever run into the situation where it says no data available, don't worry about that. You can simply click on the left-hand side here where it says by category group and type in rotor. And you'll notice that I do have an option here for brake rotor R&R, but it falls in as an optional labor beneath the brake pads R&R. So that's why we came up with that issue. However, you saw how easy it was for me to quickly go to the part category and group and type in what I was looking for. So here it highlights the brake rotor R&R, says that we should be charging an additional 1/10 of an hour per. Now, I can adjust any of these. Now, if I just put a brake rotor R&R on here and do each side, so both sides essentially, it is not going to just charge the 1/10 of an hour. It is going to also assume that you have to do the base job of brake pads R&R. Obviously, you have to remove the pads before you could remove the rotor. So even if I do not put a check mark on the 1.3 hours here, and I just leave the brake rotor R&R selected with the 1/10, watch what happens when I post this. It brought over the part, as we expected, 2 rotors, and it brought over the labor at $162. Now, if I click on the technician button in the center of the screen here, I can easily see that the labor that was associated with that is equal to 1.8 hours, which represents the brake job as well as, or I should say the brake pads, as well as the rotors. Again, I can confirm that by right-clicking, going to labor, typing in rotor in the bottom left-hand corner, select brake rotor R&R, and again, we see the 1.3 hours that were selected here and the additional 1/10. Now, mine came up with a higher labor time because I'm using what's considered a modified labor time. I didn't choose the 1.3, my system was set up for 1.6. So when I put a check mark on that and each, that represents basically 2/10 on top of the 1.6. So that's how it came up with 1.8 hours on my system. And again, I can just close this and go back to technicians and prove that it put in the 1.8 hours there as expected.